week of exams starting next Monday. I hope you could celebrate Mother's Day with your mother and they could love the details you gave them. I hope they like them. It's a blessing to have our mothers alive and safe and sound with us. Yesterday, I found out that a good old friend died at night. He died due to COVID-19, a complication with COVID-19. And later that night, mother also passed away. So it was really hard, really hard. I believe that she couldn't stand being alive and his son dead. That is what I believe. I don't know. Some people say that he decided to take her because he was the one in charge of her, because the other brothers live in the States. So sometimes I believe paranormal and extraordinary things happen, at least once in a while. I don't have rabbits, baby. No tengo conejo, mi amor, era perrito. Okay, I'm going to share a video. Let me just check if it's ready. Nice. I found it. It's a video of 30 minutes. I left the video in Moodle so that you can finish watching it once the class is over. Oh, Roger, wow. That's a new you. Jesus Christ. You look like an actor now. Wow. Very handsome. Hay ustedes que no les gusta que les digan cosas bonitas porque se ponen así todos rojitos. All right, The Hanging Stranger by Philip Dick.
And now, The Hanging Stranger.
At 5.
Hi, Ashley. Is that my computer directly connects to the Bluetooth?
5 o'clock, Ed Loyce washed up, tossed on his hat and coat, got his car out, and headed across town toward his TV sales store. He was tired. His back and shoulders ached from digging dirt out of the basement and wheeling it into the backyard. But for a 40-year-old man, he had done okay. Janet could get a new vase with the money he had saved, and he liked the idea of repairing the foundations himself. It was getting dark. The setting sun cast long rays over the scurrying commuters. Tired and grim-faced, women loaded down with bundles and packages, students swarming home from the university, mixing with clerks and businessmen and drab secretaries. He stopped his Packard for a red light and then started it up again. The store had been open without him. He had arrived just in time to spell the help for dinner, go over the records of the day, maybe even close a couple of sales himself. He drove slowly past the small square of green in the center of the street, the town park. There were no parking places in front of Loyce TV Sales and Service. He cursed under his breath and swung the car in a U-turn. Again, he passed the little square of green with its lonely drinking fountain and bench and single lamppost. From the lamppost, something was hanging. A shapeless dark bundle swinging a little with the wind, like a dummy of some sort. Loyce rolled down his window and peered out. What the hell was it? A display of some kind? Sometimes the Chamber of Commerce put up displays in the square. Again, he made a U-turn and brought his car around. He passed the park and concentrated on the dark bundle. It wasn't a dummy. And if it was a display, it was a strange kind. The hackles on his neck rose, and he swallowed uneasily. Sweat slid out on his face and hands. It was a body. A human body. "Look at it!" Lois snapped. "Come on out here!" Don Ferguson came slowly out of the store, buttoning his pinstripe coat with dignity. "This is a big deal, Ed. I can't just leave the guy standing there." "See it?" Ed pointed into the gathering gloom. The lamppost jutted up against the sky, the post and the bundle swinging from it. "There it is! How the hell long has it been there?" His voice rose excitedly. "What's wrong with everybody? They just walk on past." Don Ferguson lit a cigarette slowly. "Take it easy, old man. There must be a good reason, or it wouldn't be there." "A reason? What kind of reason?" Ferguson shrugged. "Like the time the Traffic Safety Council put that wrecked Buick there. Some sort of civic thing. How would I know?" Jack Potter from the shoe shop joined them. "What's up, boys?" "There's a body hanging from the lamppost," Lois said. "I'm going to call the cops." "They must know about it," Potter said, "or otherwise it wouldn't be there." "I got to get back in." Ferguson headed back into the store. "Business before pleasure." Lois began to get hysterical. "You see it? You see it hanging there? A man's body! A dead man!" "Sure, Ed. I saw it this afternoon when I went out for coffee." "You mean it's been there all afternoon?" "Sure. What's the matter?" Potter glanced at his watch. "Have to run. See you later, Ed." Potter hurried off, joining the flow of people moving along the sidewalk, men and women passing by the park. A few glanced up curiously at the dark bundle and then went on. Nobody stopped. Nobody paid any attention. "I'm going nuts," Lois whispered. He made his way to the curb and crossed out into traffic among the cars. Horns honked angrily at him. He gained the curb and stepped up onto the little square of green. The man had been middle-aged. His clothing was ripped and torn, a gray suit splashed and caked with dry mud. A stranger. Lois had never seen him before, not a local man. His face was partly turned away, and in the evening wind he spun a little, turning gently, silently. His skin was gouged and cut, red gashes, deep scratches of congealed blood. A pair of steel-rimmed glasses hung from one ear, dangling foolishly. His eyes bulged. His mouth was open, tongue thick and ugly blue. "Oh, for heaven's sake," Lois muttered, sickened. He pushed down his nausea and made his way back to the sidewalk. He was shaking all over with revulsion and fear. Why? Who was this man? Why was he hanging there? What did it mean? Why didn't anybody notice? He bumped into a small man hurrying along the sidewalk. "Watch it," the man grated. "Oh, it's you, Ed." Ed nodded dazedly. "Hello, Jenkins. What's the matter?" The stationery clerk caught Ed's arm. "You look sick." "The body, there in the park." "Sure, Ed." Jenkins led him into the alcove of Lois TV sales and service. "Take it easy." Margaret Henderson from the jewelry store joined them. "Something wrong?" "Ed's not feeling well." Lois yanked himself free. "How can you stand there? Don't you see it? For God's sake!" "What's he talking about?" Margaret asked nervously. "The body!" Ed shouted. "The body hanging there!" More people collected. "Is he sick? It's Ed Lois. You okay, Ed?" "The body!" Lois screamed, struggling to get past them. Hands caught at him. He tore loose. "Let me go! The police! Get the police!" "Ed! Better get a doctor." "Yeah, he must be sick. Or drunk." Lois fought his way through the people. He stumbled and half fell. Through a blur, he saw rows of faces, curious, concerned, anxious, men and women halting to see what the disturbance was. He fought past them toward his store. He could see Ferguson inside talking to a man, showing him an Emerson TV set. Pete Foley in the back at the service counter setting up the new Philco. Lois shouted at them frantically. His voice was lost in the roar of traffic and the murmuring around him. "Do something!" he screamed. "Don't stand there! Do something! Something's wrong! Something's happened! Things are going on!" The crowd melted respectfully for the two heavy-set cops moving efficiently toward Lois. "Name?" the cop with the notebook murmured. "Lois." He mopped his forehead wearily. "Edward C. Lois, listen to me. Back there." "Address?" the cop demanded. The police car moved swiftly through traffic, shooting among the cars and buses. Lois sagged against the seat, exhausted and confused. He took a deep, shuddering breath. 1368 Hurst Road. That's here in Pikeville? That's right. Lois pulled himself up with a violent effort. Listen to me. Back there, in the square, hanging from the lamppost. Where were you today? The cop behind the wheel demanded. Where? Lois echoed. You weren't in your shop, were you? No, he shook his head. No, I was at home, down in the basement. In the basement. Digging a new foundation. Getting the dirt to pour a cement frame. Why? What has that got to do with... Was anybody else down there with you? No, my wife was downtown. My kids were at school. Lois looked from one heavy-set cop to the other. Hope flickered across his face. Wild hope. You mean, because I was down there, I missed the explanation? I didn't get in on it, like everybody else? After a pause, the cop with the notebook said, That's right. You missed the explanation. Then it's official. The body. It's supposed to be hanging there. It's supposed to be hanging there for everybody to see. Ed Lois grinned weakly. Good Lord, I guess I sort of went off the deep end. I thought maybe something had happened, something like the Ku Klux Klan, some kind of violence, communists or fascists taking over. He wiped his face with his breast pocket handkerchief, his hand shaking. I'm glad to know it's on the level. Yeah, it's on the level. The police car was getting near the Hall of Justice. The sun had set. The streets were gloomy and dark. The lights had not yet come on. I feel better, Lois said. I was pretty excited there for a minute. I guess I got all stirred up. Now that I understand, there's no need to take me in, is there? The two cops said nothing. I should get back to my store. The boys haven't had dinner. I'm all right now. No more trouble. Is there any need of... This won't take long, the cop behind the wheel interrupted. A short process. Only a few minutes. I hope it's short, Lois muttered. The car slowed down for a stoplight. I guess I sort of disturbed the peace. Funny getting excited like that, and Lois yanked the door open. He sprawled out into the street and rolled to his feet. Cars were moving all around him, gaining speed as the light changed. Lois leapt to the curb and raced among the people, burrowing into the swarming crowds. Behind him he heard sounds, shouts, people running. They weren't cops. He realized that right away. He knew every cop in Pikeville. A man couldn't own a store, operate a business in a small town for 25 years without getting to know all the cops. They weren't cops, and there hadn't been any explanation. Potter, Ferguson, Jenkins, none of them knew why it was there. They didn't know, and they didn't care. That was the strange part. Lois ducked into a hardware store. He raced toward the back, past the startled clerks and customers, into the shipping room and through the back door. He tripped over a garbage can and ran up a flight of concrete steps. He climbed over a fence and jumped down on the other side, gasping and panting. There was no sound behind him. He had got away. He was at the entrance of an alley, dark and strewn with boards and ruined boxes and tires. He could see the street at the far end. A streetlight wavered and came on. Men and women, stores, neon signs, cars. And to his right, the police station. He was close, terribly close. Past the loading platform of a grocery store rose the white concrete side of the Hall of Justice. Barred windows, the police antenna, a concrete wall rising up in the darkness. A bad place for him to be near. He was too close. He had to keep moving, get farther away from them. Them? Lois moved cautiously down the alley. Beyond the police station was the city hall, the old-fashioned yellow structure of wood and gilded brass and broad cement steps. He could see the endless rows of offices, dark windows.
Okay, up to here. Can you please, Emily, retell what just happened in these first 10 minutes of the reading?
Well, the main thing was that this guy could see stuff that other people couldn't. There was a body hanging, and he was like freaking out. And like people were saying that he was, if he was okay, if he was sick, because he could see stuff. And from last, he was arriving to the police station. He was like in a, he was going through like a little valley, something like that. And he was arriving to the police station.
windows, the cedars and beds of flowers on each side of the entrance. And something else. Above the city hall was a patch of darkness, a cone of gloom denser than the surrounding night, a prism of black that spread out and was lost into the sky. He listened. Good God, he could hear something. Something that made him struggle frantically to close his ears, his mind to shut out the sound. A buzzing. A distant, muted hum like a great swarm of bees. Lois gazed up, rigid with horror. The splotch of darkness hanging over the city hall. Darkness so thick it seemed almost solid. In the vortex, something moved, flickering shapes. Things descending from the sky, pausing momentarily above the city hall, fluttering over it in a dense swarm and then dropping silently onto the roof. Shapes. Fluttering shapes from the sky, from the crack of darkness that hung above him. He was seeing them. For a long time, Lois watched, crouched behind a sagging fence in a pool of scummy water. They were landing, coming down in groups, landing on the roof of the city hall and disappearing inside. They had wings, like giant insects of some kind. They flew and fluttered and came to rest and then crawled crab fashion sideways across the roof and into the building. He was sickened and fascinated. Cold night wind blew around him and he shuddered. He was tired, dazed with shock. On the front steps of the city hall were men standing here and there. Groups of men coming out of the building and halting for a moment before going on. Were there more of them? It didn't seem possible. What he saw descending from the black chasm weren't men. They were alien from some other world, some other dimension, sliding through this slit, this break in the shell of the universe. Entering through this gap, winged insects from another realm of being. On the steps of the city hall, a group of men broke up. A few moved toward a waiting car. One of the remaining shapes started to re-enter the city hall. It changed its mind and turned to follow the others. Lois closed his eyes in horror. His senses reeled. He hung on tight, clutching at the sagging fence. The shape, the man shape, had abruptly fluttered and flapped after the others. It flew to the sidewalk and came to rest among them. Pseudo-men, imitation men, insects with ability to disguise themselves as men, like other insects familiar to Earth. Protective coloration, mimicry. Lois pulled himself away. He got slowly to his feet. It was night. The alley was totally dark. But maybe they could see in the dark. Maybe darkness made no difference to them. He left the alley cautiously and moved out onto the street. Men and women flowed past, but not so many now. At the bus stood waiting groups, its lights flashing in the evening gloom. Lois moved forward. He pushed his way among those waiting, and when the bus halted, he boarded it and took a seat in the rear by the door. A moment later, the bus moved into life and rumbled down the street. Lois relaxed a little. He studied the people around him. Dulled, tired faces. People going home from work. Quite ordinary faces. None of them paid any attention to him. All sat quietly, sunk down in their seats, jiggling with the motion of the bus. The man sitting next to him unfolded a newspaper. He began to read the sports section, his lips moving. An ordinary man. Blue suit, tie, a businessman or a salesman, on his way home to his wife and family. Across the aisle, a young woman, perhaps 20, dark eyes and hair, a package on her lap, nylons and heels, red coat and white Angora sweater, gazing absently ahead of her. A high school boy in jeans and black jacket. A great triple-chin woman with an immense shopping bag loaded with packages and parcels. Her thick face dim with weariness. Ordinary people. The kind that rode the bus every evening, going home to their families, to dinner. Going home with their minds dead. Controlled, filmed over with the mask of an alien being that had appeared and taken possession of them, their town, their lives. Himself, too. Except that he had happened to be deep in his cellar instead of in the store. Somehow he had been overlooked. They had missed him. Their control wasn't perfect, foolproof. Maybe there were others. Hope flickered in Lois. They weren't omnipotent. They had made a mistake, not got control of him. Their net, their field of control had passed over him. He had emerged from his cellar as he had gone down. Apparently their power zone was limited. A few seats down the aisle, a man was watching him. Lois broke off his chain of thought. A slender man with dark hair and a small mustache, well-dressed brown suit and shiny shoes, a book between his small hands. He was watching Lois, studying him intently. He turned quickly away. Lois tensed. One of them, or another they had missed. The man was watching him again, small dark eyes, alive and clever, shrewd. A man too shrewd for them. Or one of the things itself, an alien insect from beyond. The bus halted. An elderly man got on slowly and dropped his token into the box. He moved down the aisle and took a seat opposite Lois. The elderly man caught the sharp-eyed man's gaze. For a split second, something passed between them. A look rich with meaning. Lois got to his feet. The bus was moving. He ran to the door, one step down into the well. He yanked the emergency door release. The rubber door swung open. "Hey!" the driver shouted, jamming on the brakes. "What the hell?" Lois squirmed through. The bus was slowing down. Houses on all sides, a residential district, lawns, and tall apartment buildings. Behind him, the bright-eyed man had leaped up. The elderly man was also on his feet. They were coming after him. Lois leaped. He hit the pavement with terrific force and rolled against the curb. Pain lapped over him. Pain and a vast tide of blackness. Desperately, he fought it off. He struggled to his knees and then slid down again. The bus had stopped. People were getting off. Lois groped around.
Okay, after he went to the police and they thought that he was crazy or he was drunk because he was the only one that could see the hanging stranger, what happened?
He saw some like aliens, and like they could like make themselves look like humans, like men and women.
And then there are 22.
He went into a bus and he saw a woman, a teenage boy, a man, and a slender man that. Sorry, I just heard someone scream. And a slender man that was analyzing him, and he thought that they were aliens too, that they were following him. So he drove the bus, and the driver screamed him and slowed down the bus just to make sure that he was okay.
Please, your microphone is off.
I'm sorry. Only 11 students in class. There were 12, but somebody else left from the room. I don't need to be telling you to turn on the cameras. That is something you already know from the beginning of the year. Thanks for those of you that follow directions all the time. Those of you that have an excuse, you already know that if you have an excuse, you have an excuse. There's nothing I can do. Your assignment for tomorrow is to finish listening to the video. It is on Moodle. If you don't like the video because it seems boring for you and you like better reading, well, there is the reading too. The story is in Moodle, okay? Tomorrow, you are going to start discussing the story and trying to make it come to reality to see if it happened, if that could really happen, or if it's something, if it's an isolated fact, all right? So for today, we're done. I will see you tomorrow. Hope you enjoy the rest of the Monday. See you guys.
Bye, Miss.